Hey there, Vinny from Project Frugal. Today we're going to be talking about getting out of debt using two primary methods, the debt snowball and the debt avalanche. And there's also the debt do nothing. So let's check it out. Okay, we're going to make some assumptions here. We're going to assume that our Joe Blogs is making $1,000 per week, which equates to $50,000 a year. Having a look at the New Zealand tax rates for this, if they're making Joe Blogs $52,000 a year, then they will be paying $8,620 in tax. Because of New Zealand's progressive tax rate system, anything you earn up to 14,000 is taxed at 10.5, and then between those numbers there, it's taxed at 17.5. Over 48,000, it's taxed at 30%, and over 70,000, which we're not making in this instance, is taxed at 33%. And the latest one the government's done is any income over 180,000 taxed at the top rate at this stage of 39%. So, stating the obvious again, $8,620 is the tax that we'll be paying off our gross income of $52,000 or $1,000 per week. So let's see how that stacks up with our debt calculations. So in this masterful example here, we've got Joe Blogs, aka Mr. Debt Do Nothing, who has all these debts. We're looking at $350,250. $250, why do you ask? Well, Mr. Joe Blogs has a power bill debt of $250. So we're going to assume that he or she has a personal loan of $10,000 with an interest rate of 15%. And we're going to assume that Joe Blogs, aka Mr. Debt Do Nothing, pays the minimum amount on these debts, and we'll see how that pans out. And as you can see, I've already calculated the figures here. So paying the minimum amount on this particular 3-year loan of $10,000 will equate to a total amount paid of $12,449 at an interest rate of 15%, which, yeah, well, that's what it works out to be. So over the course of this loan, he'll be paying $2,449 extra on that personal loan, sticking to the basic payments. You can see here we've got a power bill. Now you ask why I've got a power bill in there. Well, let's just call it an everyday bill. We'll get to that a bit later. So there's no interest on that. We do get penalised if we don't pay it on time, so we want to pay it off as soon as possible because these are bills that are going to come in every month. Mr. Joe Blogs also has a credit card debt of $15,000 at 20% interest. With the minimum payment in New Zealand, the minimum payment for credit cards is generally between 2 and 5%. In this example, I've used 2.5%, just as an example, and the minimum payment, monthly payment on that would be $375. If the minimum payment on this $15,000 was paid every month and nothing more was added to the credit card and no additional payments were made, then it would take 67 long months to pay off, that's 5 years and 7 months. So that is a long time. So golden rule number one, don't get yourself in credit card debt. And looking at that amount, the $15,000 originally blown or spent on whatever, by the time it's paid off, it's almost $25,000. So you've just paid an extra $10,000 for what? Maybe, yeah. We've also got the student loan there. I've just added that in. Now, in New Zealand, yeah, there's a few things around the student loan. So the rules have changed over the years. So it's basically you pay 0% interest on your student loan, if you have a student loan, as long as you stay in New Zealand. If you go overseas for at least 5 or 6 months, then you'll start getting taxed with interest on that. And the interest rate, although albeit pretty low, it's 3% interest on whatever your balance is, sort of thing. And there'll be some sort of minimum charge on that. So the minimum charge, generally speaking, is anything you earn over and above $390, you have to pay back 12% of that. So in this example here, we've said that Joe Blogs has a $25,000 student loan. He's got a $52,000 job. So that equates to him having to pay back $317.20 per month. And that will take 79 months. So that's 79 months. That's several years anyway. But there is no interest charge on that. So that's just something to keep in mind. And we've also got a mortgage. Now, based on house prices in New Zealand, a $300,000 mortgage is extremely low. So, but we're going with that. We're just going with an interest rate figure of 3%. We're going with the minimum payment again, which is $1,265 per month. Now, this is calculated over a 30-year loan. So if we were to pay if Joe Bloggs in this scenario was to pay the minimum payments on all of these and not put any money, so for example, if he's paid off the power bill and the next lowest debt in this case is the personal loan, and he pays that off and then he pays the personal loan off over the next 3 years, but doesn't put any of their money into these other debts and just lets them drift along and pays the minimum amount, well, he's going to be out of debt in 30 years. So if Joe Bloggs is 30, he's going to be 60 by the time he pays all his debt off, which is not ideal. So having a look at these other figures here, the total interest paying the minimum amount based on these numbers is $167,000. Not ideal. So let's have a look at the debt snowball method and see how that differs from this. So the debt snowball method will differ to this particular budget here, or this list of debts, because basically what you do is you're paying off the lowest debt to the highest debt in that order. So paying the minimum amount on each of these debts, and then once this first one's done, for example this one, we take that out. Any monthly payments will go on the next debt. I'm going to put that back in, and then we go on to the next smallest amount of debt, and we pay this off at the minimum payment with any pre-existing payments for previous debts that have been paid off, that all get bundled in and basically creating a small and then ever largening snowball. So once the personal loan's paid off, this minimum payment of $350 goes into the next debt, which in this case is the credit card debt. So if we just wipe those two off, you would be adding another $350 per month onto the credit card. So you're looking at $725 per month getting paid on whatever the credit card balance is, and that gets paid off, and so on and so forth until you're down to the student loan. So you've accumulated all of these numbers here, which is 300 what do we got there, $1,292, which you're adding onto the mortgage. So your mortgage payment is now, using this method, roughly $2,500 per month, because you've got no other debt at that stage. So the benefit of this is you get rid of low, small debts, which gives you personal motivation to carry on with this process and pay off more and more debts. And then eventually you've only got one or two debts, and eventually you're left with your largest ever debt, which for most people is their mortgage. And that's basically the way it works. So there are some pros and cons with this method. The best pro is it gives you motivation. You can see things happening in terms of the total amount of debts. They get cut down one by one until you get to obviously the largest and longest debt. But it doesn't account for the most economical way of paying off debt, and that's what we're going to look at next. So here's the debt avalanche method. So these numbers aren't exact, and this is just to give you an idea of how it sort of works. So in this scenario, we're paying off the power bill first because we don't want the power bill to get cut, or the power to get cut off. The next one we're going to tackle is, we're still paying the minimum on all of these payments, but the next debt we're going to tackle is the credit card. And the reason we're going to tackle the credit card is because it's got the highest interest. So the sooner that's paid off, we can then put that money, the $375, onto the next highest paying interest amount, which in this case is the personal loan with 15%, and so forth and so on until you're paying off the mortgage. The student loan doesn't matter as long as we don't move overseas, because it's got a 0% interest rate. The mortgage is the one that's going to accrue the least interest on this thing. and that will be the last one to pay off. Well, the student loan will be paid off naturally over time based on the 12% over the threshold rule, so nothing to worry about with that. The mortgage is going to take the longest, and essentially what you want to do with this particular method, this is the most fiscally responsible and economic method, is pay the minimum on everything, pay as much as you can on your highest interest debt. Once that's paid off, pay all of that money that you were paying onto the next loan or bill, and so on and so forth, until you're maxing out as much as you can pay, accruing as little interest as possible, because the goal here is to get completely out of debt as fast as possible. Now we will show you this page here. Link is down below in the description. So this is the debt payoff calculator. This also uses the debt avalanche method. So including all of these debts here, we've got our debts there. We haven't included the power bill of $250 for this one, but we can see that this calculates that you will be paid off, or you will be debt free in 16 years and 4 months if you use the debt avalanche method, versus the first method that we looked at, which was the Joe Bloggs do nothing method, apart from the fact that he would have a little bit more money left over because he's potentially, when he's paid off each debt, he's not actually accruing the money onto the next debt, he's just spending it on stuff. However, this advises that we do the credit card first, and you're paying $375 until it's paid off, roughly within 3 years, and then you're accruing that money from other debts, and just accruing it and accruing it and accruing it until everything's paid off, and then you're doing the same with these other debts as well. So this is a really, really good calculator because it does all the donkey work for you, and it suggests the correct order of paying these things off. So, and as an example, in the personal loan, you're paying a minimum of $350 until the 3 months has gone past, and then you've got one final sort of payment at $199. So the credit card is paid off even before this personal loan gets paid off, by the looks of this, which is, well, it's pretty good. Well, actually, hang on, that doesn't make sense. But anyway, no, because you're still paying the credit card off. But this one will be paid off prior to the credit card being paid off. So you're really focusing on the highest interest debt in the credit card in this instance. The mortgage, as these bills get paid off, these other ones, the credit card, the personal loan, etc., you're adding more and more and more and more and more money onto that until that's paid off. But the student loan gets paid off after 79 months, where in this case we're looking at 196 months for the whole thing. So you still got 120 months of a mortgage, which is not ideal. You can also put other things into this, such as extra payments that you might make per month, per year, or one-time payments, and fixed total amount towards monthly payment, etc., etc. So a really, really good site for looking at debt and how to pay it off as soon as possible. So there's two main methods, like I've said: the Snowball, where you're paying the smallest amount first until you get to the largest debt, and then you put all your money onto that; and the debt avalanche, where you're paying the highest interest rate first to get out of debt as soon as possible. The debt Snowball, like I said, is the best method for giving yourself a feel-good thing to get rid of a number of debts if you've got a whole bunch of them. The Avalanche is paying the highest amount first, so you're going to minimize the total amount that you pay. I've used, basically, for my personal journey, a combination of both, but mainly the debt Avalanche and the debt Snowball in the beginning, just to get a couple of little debts out of the way, just to give me a bit of motivation to move forward on this. I hope that's been interesting to you and you've learned something out of that. So, debt, bad, very bad, very, very, very bad, and I would avoid it at all costs if you can. Once you've got all this debt out of the way, then you can start investing, and if you can get a return of, let's say, 7%, which is apparently it's the market average, and you've got $1,000 and you chuck it into an investment and you get $70 a year for doing nothing apart from leaving an investment, I'd rather get $70 a year than be burdened down with paying lots of money, interest and debt for months and months and months and months. And in an upcoming video, I'll be showing you how I got out of debt, how many years it took me, what method I used, how I did it, and all that sort of stuff. So hopefully you will stay tuned and watch that one in an upcoming video. So like and subscribe. Hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you in the next video. See you later. Bye-bye.